are several things that I'd like to speak about. And honestly, this also has it has some relation to being silenced or being unable to speak. Um, I know people in my life that are avoidance. They have an avoidant attachment style. Actually, I know quite a few of them, and it kind of runs rampant in my family and my extended family to be an avoidant attachment. It kind of goes along with being an introvert. Um, but what happens with an avoidant is they they get under, and I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a trained therapist and I haven't went to school for this. I've just studied it a lot. So if they get stressed or if they feel like they're being condemned or if they feel like they're somewhat emotionally endangered, they're about to get hurt. There's a lot of different things that can trigger it, but if they have some sort of a trigger, they will run away from you. They may go silent, they may go no contact. Some are just, they just run to their room or, they run away somehow. But they will often shut down. And when they shut down, they can't vocalize what's hurting them, they just hold it in. And they may actually run to someone else to represent them if they have someone that they are in a trust relationship with. And being silenced is it's a very painful thing. I was thinking, this is one of the things that I was thinking last night when I got in bed and I should have been sleeping. Um, my parents' generation, and I don't, every generation is slightly different, but my parents' generation, if you are 40, 50, 60, if you're a little bit older and you had parents that were like this, or you had parents that um, were a little bit old fashioned in their raisings, you probably have heard this. You're going to have a timeout. You go stand in the corner, or you go sit in that chair. And I don't want to hear one peep out of you. Don't open your mouth and don't speak until you're spoken to. Well, you take a kid that's being shushed like that. Maybe they're crying. Maybe they have pain. But they don't want a whipping and they don't want to be chastised. They don't want to be in trouble. So you tell them, you hush. And I don't want to hear one word out of you. You stop your crying and don't you speak until you're spoken to. That was my generations, my parents' generations. Poor kids. Um, then I came along, and I think as a parent, I just didn't listen. Or I was so busy, and sometimes, me personally, a lot of times I was angry about something. It really didn't have anything to do with my kids, but I was kind of emulating what I had been taught. It's time for you to grow up and get over it. And you're talking to a 3 or 4 year old kid, it's like, grow up and get over it. Right? So actually I have got a light problem here and I'm going to go fix that. So bear with me. Okay. Light problem fixed. So I as a parent didn't really listen to my kids either. I might not have been telling them, you go over there and you sit down and you shut up and don't speak to your spoken to, but I wasn't listening. I was like too busy. And I see the effects of that in my kids today. And I have fantastic kids. They're not kids, they're adults, but they're fantastic. And I couldn't be more proud of them. No, they don't do everything to make suit me, but they're not supposed to be suiting me. They're supposed to be building their own lives, and I commend them for that. And even Joe, um, you know, my son, he lives with us because he has some disabilities. But Joe is growing into this adult that can make his own decisions. And I'm so proud. So, but then again, we have the silence. And now we have an entire generation of kids. And when I say kids, I mean, I'm old. So, you know, I call them kids, but they're 20s, 30s. We have a whole generation of that were not listened to. Nobody listened to them. Um, I mean, maybe you had a parent or parents that were really, really good at that, but I'm speaking from my experience and the experience of a lot of people. So if you were different, then, this isn't for you. So now we have an entire generation of people that were never listened to. They didn't have anybody be empathic with their needs as a kid. They were emotionally neglected by emotionally stunted parents that didn't know how to relate to them. And so now we have this whole generation that are literally saying, okay, I have boundaries and you trigger me. So I am an adult, and until you learn to respect my boundaries, I'm going to go no contact. I'm going to go silent. And also, it's everywhere. This going no contact and going silent and ghosting, which technically ghosting is supposed to be when somebody cuts off contact with you without any explanation. So there's some difference in going silent, going no contact, or whatever like that. But they will cut off their parents, they'll cut off their siblings, they'll cut off anybody that they deem as toxic. And I really believe this is because they were not listened to. So essentially, they're coming back and they're saying, don't tread on me. You weren't there for me. You didn't listen to me. So don't trigger me. I have boundaries. I have built a fence around myself. And don't cross it. And if you do cross it, I will tighten down the bands. And, they're adults. They have perfect rights to do that. But I believe that it ultimately come from not being listened to as kids, not having empathetic parents, not having parents with listening ears. And as I say, karma's tough. We pay the price of our fails. Your past follows you. And, it will follow them too. And that's just the way this world turns. They have kids, God only knows. So last night, this is really extreme, but, as I was sleeping or trying to sleep, my mind was going, and I have a really difficult time shutting down my mind. So I'm thinking, okay, my generation was Go sit down and don't speak until you're spoken to. Um, Me as a parent, this generation um, that you're looking at right now, we were hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Oh, do you have a problem? Deal with it. Um, Now the generation that's coming along, they're like, um, you trigger me, I'm not emotionally able to handle this, you're toxic. So here's the boundaries. You cross it, I'll go no contact. And I'm imagining, what is the next generation going to be? And this is nobody's fault. This is like things that were just passed down from, it's just like, you have this bag of garbage, and grandma and grandpa pass it down to mom and dad, and then mom and dad pass it down to you, and then that bag gets passed down to your kids, and it's still a bag of garbage. Somebody needs to deal with the garbage. So, but I was thinking in my delusional state while I was trying to sleep, what's the next generation going to be? And in my like weird demented pirate's mind, I'm thinking about this movie that I saw where all the old people were being recycled and essentially turned into some kind of like food pellets to feed the rest of the world. It was what really terrible. And I was thinking maybe they'll start euthanizing all of the people over 50 that they feel like could be possibly using all the resources, and you know the old folks are eating up all the food from the young folks. It's it's not like one generation is worse than the other, but this bag of garbage just keeps getting passed down. Now I'm going to make a little excerpt here because sometimes when I'm talking about these things I laugh. I have this weird thing where I laugh at inappropriate times. um I think it's because of my past and things that I've been through. And after a while, you just kind of, the irony of everything you've been through, it's just like your cup gets full of trauma. And after a while, it just starts bubbling over in this like foamy laugh. But anyway, don't be offended because I chuckle um, at inappropriate times because it's just something that happens. So, what I really, really think needs to happen is somebody needs to quit passing down the bag of garbage to their kids. We have to start being emotionally mature. I'm hoping that my kids' generation will. Sorry about that. That was my phone notification. I'm hoping, and I have every confidence. I know my kids, late 20s, middle 20s, late 20s, they're smart. And they're way, way, way ahead of me as far as being emotionally mature when I was that age. When I was in my middle 20s, I was like a 14-year-old. I didn't know anything hardly, much less be emotionally mature. So I have really high hopes that this whole boundary thing will essentially give them the space that they can figure this out. And um but what really really needs to happen is we need to start listening to each other. We need to start being empathetic about other people's pain. And it is difficult because you don't want to be drugged down. You're already drugged down with your own pain. You don't want to listen to somebody else. And really, what has happened is because nobody's listening to anybody else about their pain, and they know nobody's going to be listening to them. Nobody wants to hear about your problems. So the 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 therapist, counselor, psychologist career industry is just exploding. Every therapist that I know is covered up because nobody's listening to anybody else talk about their pain. Nobody wants to hear it because it's not because they don't want to, they just can't bear it. Their truckload of garbage is already full. But what we need to do is at least start blocking off time to listen to our kids. If you don't do anything else, listen to your children. And parents make the mistake, and I made the mistake, of just saying, if your kid comes to you and says, I'm depressed, you need to take that serious. I mean, very serious. If your kid comes to you and says, I'm being bullied at school, well, in my generation, it's like, if this kid's bothering you, just go and knock his lights out. Well, or toughen up. You can take this. No, no, listen to them. Get to the bottom of their problems. If they need therapy, if they need medication, if they're having trouble at school, if they're emotionally distraught, if your child is throwing a fit and crying, there may be something that's really, really bothering them, and you need to listen to them. I know this is like a lot of the people that watch this, it's like preaching to the choir, but this is something that needs to go out. And if you get to the point where you're actually being empathic and you're listening to your kids, then open yourself up a little bit further and start listening to your sister, your brother. I was a very troubled young person. I found my way into trouble, and I did stupid, stupid things and made decisions. But a lot of it was because everybody just thought I was really smart, and everybody just thought I was going to make great decisions. And at 14, I was an adult, and I could just make my own decisions. And oh well, I just can't do anything with that anyway. I don't blame them. My mom was out on her own when she was 14 for reasons, that maybe I'll talk about later. But we need to start paying attention. We can't save the world. You can't go through your neighborhood, and trust me, I've tried. You can't go through your neighborhood and fix everybody, but you can help those and be a listening ear to those that are closest to you. So, I know that this video is getting pretty long, and so I don't even know what I'm going to call this. I didn't talk about what I thought I was going to talk about. Um, I'm, I think I just will name this silenced, because whether you have had the proverbial duck put over your mouth, or whether you just didn't have a listening ear, or if all through your life you've just been told to suck it up, buttercup, this has to stop somewhere. And so I am one on the record, is I'm saying start listening. Now that doesn't always work out to your benefit, because you can listen, but most of the time nobody wants advice. And if you give them advice, they could take it as criticism. They could take it as intrusion. You're not about to fix people. You're not about, especially adults, you're not about to tell them what they need to do to make their life better. But most of the time, if you are listening, you've got your ears out. You're not scrolling your phone. You're actually looking at the person, maybe not directly in the eye, because that can make people uncomfortable. But you're just, you know, looking and listening. They can tell you're paying attention. Occasionally ask them a question or something so they know you're on board. But usually as a person talks, this is why talk therapy with a counselor is so amazing, because usually as a person talks, they will figure it out themselves. Now, I have tried to listen and I've went about it all the wrong ways because I'm very opinionated, and that's one of those things that will go on my video of things I don't like about myself. I am very opinionated, and as you can tell, I talk too much. So I am apt to give advice, unwanted advice, or just say something that's out of the way. I'm going to do a video on a pirate's heart. I may do that pretty quick. It's going to be interesting. So, this is a video on being silenced. And there is a plethora of ways that you can be silenced. But it needs to stop. And you need to be heard. You need to be listened to. And I've created my own platform where I can just talk. And you can listen if you want to, and you don't have to if you want to. You're welcome to, and you're welcome not to. And that suits me perfectly. So, as the dogs are going to start barking and things are going to get a little crazy, I'm going to say bye-bye for now. Now, I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, comment. It would be really helpful if you hit the bell button so you get notifications, if you would hit the like button, and if you would comment. If there's anything that you have to say to add to what I've got to say, please comment, and I will be more than glad to acknowledge that I've read that, unless I get to be such a big YouTuber that it's too many and I just can't do it. But for now, please comment and please like my video and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.